This is the final known photograph of 12-year-old Jared Negrete. A self-portrait he took on July 19, 1991, just hours after being declared officially missing. Jared was a Boy Scout, and July 19th was supposed to be a big day. His first overnight hiking trip to the summit of Mount San Gorgonio, the tallest peak in Southern California. That morning, Jared set out alongside 5 other scouts and an adult troop leader, eager to make the 11,000-foot climb. Things went smoothly at first, but the difficult elevation began to wear Jared down. By 6 p.m., he had started to fall behind the group, unable to maintain their pace. Rather than slow down, the troop leader made a decision that would haunt him. He pushed forward with the rest of the boys, leaving Jared alone on the mountain trail. A short time later, a separate group of hikers spotted Jared making his way down the mountain by himself, dangerously veering off the trail, cutting across switchbacks. For context, switchbacks are zigzag trails designed to prevent hikers from falling on steep terrain. Jared, however, was heading straight downhill, a risky move. These hikers warned him of the danger and later informed the troop leader when they caught up to the group. But he brushed it off, saying they would catch up to Jared on their way back. They never did. By the time the group returned to the area, Jared was gone. Realizing the situation was serious, the troop rushed down to base camp and alerted authorities by midnight. This launched one of the largest search and rescue operations ever conducted in the region. In the following days, search crews combed over 130 square miles of the rugged San Gorgonio wilderness, but no sign of Jared turned up. On the 3rd day, rescuers found their first clue, a footprint matching the high-top sneakers Jared had been wearing. Nearby, they also discovered several personal items, including beef jerky wrappers, candy packaging, and most importantly, Jared's disposable camera. The film inside held 12 photographs. Most showed scenery from the hike, but the final image was disturbing, a close-up of Jared's own face, just his eyes and nose, lit by the camera's flash. The picture was taken after he had gone missing. It confirmed he was alive for at least some time after becoming separated from the group. But it gave investigators no idea where he might be. The flash had lit only his face. The background was completely black, with no visible landmarks or terrain. Despite this clue, the search dragged on. Over 2 weeks, nearly 3,000 people volunteered, combining to search for more than 45,000 man-hours. Yet nothing new surfaced. On August 4th, after 16 exhausting days, the official search was brought to an end. Jared Negrete was never found, and the mystery of what happened to him deep in the forest remains unsolved to this day. To this day, no one knows exactly what happened to Jared. Several theories have emerged. The most straightforward one is that he simply lost his way, took a wrong trail while trying to reunite with his group and ended up wandering deeper into the wilderness. And while getting lost is a frequent cause of disappearance in the mountains, this theory doesn't entirely explain Jared's case. The incident took place in the peak of summer, meaning harsh weather wasn't a factor. Jared also had a 2-quart canteen full of drinkable water and access to numerous creeks and natural water sources along the mountain. In other words, he could have survived for days. And with thousands of people combing the area, someone should have stumbled across him. That's why a second theory suggests Jared may have slipped and fallen from a dangerous height. Remember, he was last seen cutting across switchbacks, which are meant to safely guide hikers through steep sections. If he continued shortcutting after being warned and lost his footing in the dimming light, it's entirely possible he fell to his death. Still, no body or evidence of a fall was ever found, despite the enormous search effort. This leads to a more unsettling idea. Jared may have been attacked and dragged off by a wild animal. The region is home to black bears and mountain lions, both capable of ambushing someone alone. Some people even believe that the tiny glowing dot in the last photo on Jared's camera may have been the eye of a predator. Yet again, search crews didn't find any traces of blood, torn clothing, or drag marks. And so, we come to the darkest theory of all: abduction. If someone encountered Jared and intentionally led him away, it would explain why no physical clues were left behind. It's horrifying to consider, but many believe this scenario best explains his complete disappearance. It's now been over 3 decades, and not a single solid lead has surfaced. Jared's fate remains an unsolved mystery. On June 15, 1989, a woman in Port St. Joe, Florida, exited a local convenience store and spotted something odd in the parking lot. A Polaroid photo lying face down on the ground. She picked it up and turned it over, instantly struck by the disturbing image. A teenage girl and a much younger boy, lying in the back of a white windowless van. Both had duct tape covering their mouths and what appeared to be their hands bound behind them. Horrified, she immediately called the police. The woman mentioned she'd seen a van similar to the one in the photo moments earlier, parked nearby, and even provided a description of the man driving it. A police sketch was quickly drawn up, and officers searched the area. But despite their efforts, they never located the van or its driver. At the time, no one realized that this photo might be linked to a crime more than 1,500 miles away. The potential victim was 19-year-old college student Tara Lee Calico. On September 20, 1988, nearly 9 months before the photo surfaced, Tara left her New Mexico home at 9:30 a.m. for her routine bike ride. She followed her usual route along Highway 47 to the railroad crossing and then doubled back. But that day, she had plans with her boyfriend and told her mother, Patty, to come look for her if she wasn't home by noon. When noon passed and Tara hadn't returned, Patty drove the entire route looking for her, but saw no sign of her daughter. Fearing the worst, she contacted the authorities. Soon after, a search team was deployed. One of the first items recovered was a cassette tape believed to be Tara's, found on the roadside. Tire marks, possibly from her bike, were also nearby, but there was no sign of Tara or her distinct neon pink bicycle. As the search expanded, another clue turned up. A broken piece of her yellow Walkman was found several miles off her path. Patty was convinced this wasn't just a disappearance. She believed Tara had been abducted, and the Walkman part was a deliberate clue left behind. Her fears were echoed by witness statements. Multiple people reported seeing a suspicious, worn-down pickup truck tailing Tara closely around 11:30 a.m., not long before she would have turned back home. Witnesses noted that Tara, wearing headphones, seemed unaware she was being followed. Then, 9 months later, the Polaroid surfaced. Initially, the woman who found it had no knowledge of Tara's case. But when the photo began circulating in the media, it eventually reached Patty. She was shaken, convinced the girl in the photo was her daughter. The resemblance was striking. Even the book shown in the image was by one of Tara's favorite authors. Things escalated when a separate family came forward. They believed the young boy in the photo was their missing son, 9-year-old Michael Henley, who had vanished just months before Tara during a camping trip in New Mexico. Suddenly, it seemed the photo might depict two unrelated abductions that had converged in one terrifying moment. But then the case took an unexpected twist. In 1990, Michael's remains were discovered just 7 miles from his original campsite. Investigators concluded he had not been abducted, instead he'd wandered away and died of exposure. This finding cast serious doubt on the theory that he was the boy in the Polaroid and by extension whether the girl was truly Tara. Some investigators were still convinced the photo depicted Tara. Others argued that the facial features didn't match and that the Polaroid was unrelated. As of now, the case remains wide open with no clear answer. The truth behind the Polaroid and Tara Calico's disappearance remains one of America's most haunting unsolved mysteries. There were subtle but noticeable differences between their facial structures enough to cast doubt. But if Tara wasn't abducted by whoever owned that mysterious white van, then what really happened to her? Shockingly, after nearly 4 decades of speculation, we might finally be on the verge of learning the truth. On June 13, 2023, the Valencia County Sheriff's Office issued a significant update in Tara Calico's case. The statement read, "At this time, law enforcement believes there is sufficient evidence to submit this investigation to the District Attorney's Office for review of potential charges. Currently, the identities and specifics of the persons of interest are sealed by the court and will remain so unless a court order dictates otherwise." In simpler terms, the police claim they've cracked the case and are only waiting for the DA's go-ahead to share the full story publicly. So why did it take nearly 40 years? One theory that's gained traction is that Tara was unintentionally struck by a vehicle, possibly a group of teens driving recklessly. Panicked and afraid of the legal consequences, they reportedly abducted her to hide the incident and ultimately ended her life to prevent discovery. According to persistent rumors, one of those involved may have been the son of a local sheriff, prompting a deep, organized cover-up that buried the truth for decades. Whether or not that theory holds weight is still unknown. But if it proves accurate, the identity of the girl in the infamous Polaroid, the one long believed to be Tara, remains an unsolved puzzle. On June 8, 1988, an ATM in Los Angeles captured what would later become the final known image of 22-year-old Matthew Chase. The day had been routine. Matt worked his regular shift and later had dinner with his roommate and best friend, Teresa. They arrived home around 11:45 p.m., and that's when Matt noticed his paycheck still sitting on the coffee table. With his bank account nearly empty and knowing that the bank would delay clearing his check, Matt decided to deposit it immediately. The nearest ATM was just a couple of blocks away, but it was late, and Teresa urged him to take her car for safety. She also asked him to grab a bag of cat food from a nearby store. The errand should have taken 15 minutes, but an hour passed. Matt didn't return. Teresa assumed he might be driving around to clear his head, so she went to sleep. But the next morning, he still hadn't come home. Alarmed, she contacted her brother Steve, who was also a close friend of Matt's. Together, they called the police to file a missing person report. Unfortunately, the officers declined to investigate right away since Matt hadn't been missing for even half a day. Frustrated by the lack of action, Teresa and Steve began looking into the situation themselves. Steve called Matt's bank, pretending to be him, and what they learned was troubling. According to the bank records, someone had attempted multiple withdrawals from Matt's account. One was for $280, a figure that made no sense. Matt's ATM card had a much lower daily limit, and more importantly, he didn't even have $100 in his account at the time. That was the whole reason for the late-night trip. The failed attempts raised serious alarms. Matt must have been under duress, possibly being coerced. With this new detail, the police took the matter more seriously. Most ATMs back then lacked security cameras, but Matt had tried using one that did have surveillance. The grainy image captured him at the machine, and a shadowy man just behind him. A few days later, Matt's account was accessed again. His deposited check had cleared, and the perpetrator withdrew $400. Authorities froze the account. So, when someone attempted to use the card once more, the ATM swallowed it. Police hoped this would finally lead them to Matt. But it didn't. The card yielded no fingerprints. It had been meticulously wiped clean. Sketches were made from the surveillance image, but no one could positively identify the man. Then, nearly 3 weeks after Matt's disappearance, a breakthrough. The car he'd been driving that night was found. It had been parked near the same ATM, but not there earlier. That suggested it was placed there later by whoever was responsible. The vehicle, like the card, had been thoroughly wiped for prints. However, officers did find something inside. A blue bandana with the letters SPBSS scrawled on it. Investigators determined ESPBS referred to the East Side Playboys, a dangerous gang active in the area. But even with this gang connection, no concrete leads emerged. As time passed, hope faded. On September 17, 1988, 3 months after Matt vanished, hikers discovered a decomposed body floating in a ravine in Pasadena. It was Matt. He'd been shot in the head. The medical report confirmed he died shortly after going missing, likely within a few days. Years dragged on with no answers. Then, in 2018, LAPD revealed a stunning update. After 30 years, they believed they had finally solved the case. Their investigation pointed to a 20-year-old gang member named David Mesa, known on the streets as Bear. His girlfriend had recognized him in the ATM footage and confirmed he was the man behind Matt in the image. But David Mesa wouldn't face justice. He was gunned down in a gang shootout just 2 days after Matt was murdered. This raised new questions. Why would a gang member kidnap and execute a random man trying to deposit a check? Was it a robbery gone wrong? A case of mistaken identity? Or something more sinister? The case may be solved on paper, but the real reasons behind Matthew Chase's tragic end remain frustratingly unclear. All of this just for $400? Was David Mesa truly acting alone, or did he have help? And if he died just days after Matthew's murder, then who returned Teresa's car to the ATM weeks later? Those lingering questions remain, but even so, the LAPD's findings brought a sliver of peace to Matt's grieving family and friends after 3 decades of silence. Then, in March 1998, another case would leave a family shattered, a case far from Los Angeles, one that started on a luxurious cruise but ended in horror. 23-year-old Amy Lynn Bradley boarded a Royal Caribbean cruise with her parents and younger brother Brad. It was meant to be a relaxing Caribbean getaway. But within just 3 days, their dream vacation turned into a living nightmare, one the Bradleys still haven't escaped. On the evening of March 23rd, Amy and her family had dinner on the ship. Her parents later recalled that Amy received a lot of attention that night, not just from fellow passengers, but also from members of the crew, including the ship's band. Several waiters even suggested taking Amy out to a bar once the ship docked, but she politely declined. Later that night, Amy and Brad went to the ship's nightclub. They returned to their cabin around 3:30 a.m. and sat together on the balcony talking. Around 5:30 a.m., their father Ron woke up and checked on them. Amy was resting on a deck chair outside, still awake. But when he looked again just 30 minutes later, she was gone. At first, Ron assumed she'd stepped out to watch the sunrise on the ship's upper deck. He searched everywhere, but there was no sign of her. Even stranger, all of Amy's belongings, including her shoes, were still in the room. When Ron reported her missing, the crew quickly offered one explanation: Amy must have fallen overboard. But the timing was ominous. The ship had docked in Curacao that morning, and thousands of passengers were already disembarking. If someone had forced her off the ship, she could have easily disappeared into the crowds without her family noticing. Refusing to give up, the Bradleys stayed on board and scoured every deck. But then something bizarre happened. Brad was approached by Alastair Douglas, the bassist from the nightclub band. He expressed sympathy for Amy's disappearance, but no one outside the family or the ship's crew should have known she was missing yet. This suspicious interaction made Alastair an immediate person of interest. He danced with Amy the night before, but after a polygraph and further questioning, he was eventually cleared by authorities. Still, the Bradleys weren't convinced. Later, the family, now working with the FBI, took their search to Curacao itself. There, they received their first promising lead. A local taxi driver said he spoke with a young woman who perfectly matched Amy's appearance. She had seemed nervous and unsure. But just like before, the tip didn't lead anywhere solid. With no other leads, the family returned to the U.S. Then in August 1998, something shocking happened. A Canadian tourist named David Carmichael reported a chilling encounter. While rinsing off scuba gear at a remote beach on Curacao, he saw a young woman walking along the shoreline, flanked closely by 2 men. She looked scared. When she heard him speak English, she suddenly sped up, trying to put distance between herself and the men. "I was only 2 feet away from her," he later said. "I don't even have to think about it. It was her 100%. Not 99, 100. David added that one of the men matched the description of Alastair Douglas. Then, in 1999, an American Navy officer came forward with a disturbing revelation. While stationed in Curacao, he visited a local adult club. There, he met a woman who told him her name was Amy Bradley. But the officer didn't report it at the time, likely to avoid disciplinary action for visiting such an establishment. When the FBI finally received the tip, it was too late. The building had since burned down, destroying all records. The most haunting clue came years later, in 2005. A series of disturbing photos surfaced online. The woman in the images appeared older, but several experts and family members believed it could be Amy. She looked sad, fearful, and in some photos seemed to be posing under duress. These images, combined with earlier sightings, sparked growing speculation. Amy hadn't drowned. She had been abducted and possibly trafficked. Some theories even suggest a broader conspiracy, that multiple crew members, possibly including Alastair, were involved in orchestrating her kidnapping. Still, without solid proof, nothing could be done. And so, on March 24, 2010, 12 years after she vanished, Amy Lynn Bradley was declared legally dead. Some still believe she may have simply fallen overboard that morning. That the woman spotted on the beach, the one in the club, and even the one in those disturbing photos were all just unfortunate lookalikes. But with so many fragmented pieces pointing to something darker, it's hard not to believe Amy's fate was far more sinister and far from over.